Hey, it's your guy Tyrrell back with the interviews. In today's video, we're going to briefly analyze how Roberto Martinez overcame the tactical issues Belgium encountered in their 2-1 win over Denmark. So when we break down the game and we do look at the board, we have both sides starting the game in a 3-4-2-1. And as stated in previous videos, the biggest issue that could encounter when both sides start with similar formations or identical formations is that they can cancel each other out of the game. Ultimately, that was Denmark's overall approach, and in today's video, we're going to break down how they caused Belgium issues and how Roberto Martinez overcame them. So what you end up seeing from Denmark was that initially they did adopt a high aggressive press, and they were looking to close down Belgium, disrupt their build-up play, and force them into mistakes. On paper, this should have been a very straightforward press. You would have Braithwaite, Poulsen, and Damsgaard stepping towards the back three, the wingbacks pushing high to close down Thorgan Hazard and Meunier, and then you should see Højbjerg and Delaney stepping to close down Tielemans and Den Donker. In the build-up to Denmark's opener, you witness Poulsen stepping towards Denier, Højbjerg prepared to step towards the unmarked Tielemans, and Damsgaard shifting narrow to close down Den Donker for Delaney. Denier ends up playing a loose pass across Tielemans, and that results in Højbjerg receiving the ball as he was looking to step towards the Belgian midfielder, and it results in a Danish break. He ends up carrying the ball across Tielemans and Den Donker when he wins it, and that pulls out Denier and it sees Poulsen with a free lane to break in towards the box. That leads to a pass being played across Denier to place Poulsen in this position, and he could look to play in Damsgaard at the back post, but he fires a low effort beyond Courtois to put Denmark ahead. Here you can see Denier prepare to shift the ball out to Vertonghen, and that's going to pull out Braithwaite with Poulsen ahead of the ball carrier, and you can see Braithwaite and Poulsen near Tielemans, while Delaney is closing down Den Donker, Vestergaard's tracking the movement of Mertens in towards the halfway circle, and Damsgaard is near Meunier, but prepared to shift towards Alderweireld if the ball is shifted into a zone. As Vertonghen receives the ball, Braithwaite applies tight pressure, Poulsen's looking to drop off to close down Tielemans, and you can see Daniel Waz closing down Thorgan Hazard, and Højbjerg's occupying free space to intercept a pass on the ground or win the second ball. We did witness variations of this press. There were times where Højbjerg didn't step forward to close down Tielemans, and you would see Poulsen stepping towards Denier but blocking off the passing lane in towards the Belgian midfielder. On the rare occasion where Mail couldn't step out into the path of Meunier, then if Alderweireld bypassed Damsgaard to play the ball into Meunier, then Damsgaard would track back to close down the wingback. This time you have Denier on the ball, and you could see the Belgian back three, but look at Poulsen blocking off the passing lane into Tielemans with Højbjerg and Braithwaite near the Belgian midfielder. And you can see Delaney prepared to step towards Den Donker if he receives the ball, with Damsgaard narrow in the halfway circle. Another modification of Denmark's 5-4-1 out of possession does witness Damsgaard shifting into the central halfway circle to close down Den Donker while Poulsen blocks off the passing lane in towards Tielemans, and that ultimately allows Højbjerg and Delaney to hold their position in case Carrasco or Mertens drop off centrally and they don't want the center backs to push forward. So along with the Denmark high press causing Belgium issues in terms of their overall build-up play, when they did drop off into a 5-4-1, Belgium still encountered issues creating chances due to their attacking structure. If you do have Waz and Mail stepping out towards Meunier and Hazard, and you have the midfield closed out of the game, because there were times where you would have Poulsen blocking off the passing lane into Tielemans, and if not, then you would see Højbjerg and Delaney stepping towards Den Donker. You have to ask yourself how they were looking to get their front three involved. One of the biggest issues was down to the lack of variance in their movement. Lukaku was looking to back into Kjær, but look at Carrasco and Mertens. If Carrasco and Mertens looked to check into the ball, Christensen and Vestergaard were tight on them. We witnessed Damsgaard stepping towards Alderweireld on the ball, and you could see Delaney pushing forward to close down Tielemans and Meunier checking in towards the ball. Alderweireld ends up playing the ball into Meunier, but that pulls out Mail, and you could see Mertens looking to drop off towards the right to get on the ball, as Meunier should be splitting Delaney and Mail. Meunier ends up splitting the Danish duo and finding Mertens in his own half, but that's where you see Vestergaard applying tight pressure towards the Belgian attacker, and he ends up winning possession. Once again, we see Denmark's press in full effect with Brathwaite, Poulsen, Højbjerg, and Christensen stepping tight to their markers. And when Vertonghen plays the ball into Tielemans, you could see Højbjerg getting tight towards him, and Tielemans is looking to play a first-time ball across the press into the path of Carrasco, who is dragging Christensen towards the halfway line. However, when Tielemans plays that pass into Carrasco, you see Christensen applying that tight pressure and forcing Carrasco in towards his own half. And what happens next is Carrasco is forced to play the ball into the path of Thorgan Hazard on the touchline, and that attracts Waz to apply pressure, and Belgium ends up conceding possession. But there were times where you did see Carrasco dropping off into that pocket of space, but he was boxed in by Waz and Brathwaite and Højbjerg and Christensen. Mertens was dropping off deeper but losing the battle against Vestergaard. If Carrasco looked to hold the touchline and run at Daniel Waz or Christensen, there was often cover from a tracking Brathwaite or Højbjerg shifting across to make it a 1v2. And frankly, the only real legitimate attacking threat that Belgium posed in that opening half witnessed either Hazard or Carrasco dragging Christensen into a wider position and then having the deeper, wider player playing balls across Daniel Waz into the path of Lukaku. If we look to another example, it's Carrasco and Hazard pulling away Christensen and Waz, and it creates a passing lane for Carrasco to find Lukaku backing into Kjær. The only real option for Lukaku in that zone is Mertens making a run in towards the box from a deep midfield position, but Kjær does a very good job of holding off Lukaku, and Vestergaard steps in to ensure that he plays a loose pass. Later on in the half, you have Thorgan Hazard playing the ball across Waz's pressure into the path of Lukaku as Carrasco drags Christensen into the left channel, and when Lukaku receives the ball and backs into Kjær, he ends up dragging Christensen towards him, and that allows Carrasco to make a free run into left half space. But what happens is that Christensen applies enough tight pressure to help out Kjær, and Lukaku plays a tame pass into his feet. However, apart from their high press forcing Belgium into mistakes in their own third, the only real threat that the Danes posed in that opening half was Damsgaard receiving the ball between the lines, and there were times where we saw Højbjerg or Delaney making runs off Tielemans into space between Vertonghen and Hazard into the channel to get on the ball, but that failed to result into legitimate goal-scoring chances. The tactical adjustment that Roberto Martinez made in the second half witnessed Belgium shift into a 3-4-1-2, and that saw Kevin De Bruyne come into that number 10 role just in behind Carrasco and Lukaku, who operated as split strikers, and now you could witness a 3v2 advantage for Belgium in that central area. Not only could De Bruyne help Lukaku and Carrasco press from the front to ensure that the numbers were aligned, now De Bruyne was able to operate in that central zone, provide a link for the Belgium attack, and more importantly, now he would be pulling out Kjær out of position, and that creates space for Carrasco and Lukaku if Denmark were going to adopt a similar high press. The second adjustment that Martinez made was replacing Carrasco and Den Donker with Axel Witsel and Eden Hazard. Witsel's a reliable passer in those deeper zones, and Eden Hazard was now looking to drift in central to receive the ball, and now you had two ball retention players in those central areas between the lines that they didn't have in the opening half, and their varied movement in the opposing half created several issues for that Danish backline. It made the Belgian attack less predictable by shifting into the wider areas and dropping into pockets of space, and ultimately it played a pivotal role in the Belgian goals. In the build-up to Belgium's equalizer, focus on De Bruyne dragging out Kjær in towards the Belgian half to receive Meunier's pass, and look at Lukaku unmarked in the right channel. De Bruyne plays a first-time pass in towards his path, and the issue that Denmark encountered here is that Vestergaard steps in and he mistimes his challenge, and it allows Lukaku to break free in that zone. When Lukaku breaks forward, it pulls out Kjær, and look at Carrasco and De Bruyne making forward runs in beyond Lukaku, and that wasn't witnessed in the opening half. That results in Lukaku breaking into right half space with Vestergaard tracking back, and you could see Christensen looking to come across to provide cover for those mistimed challenges. Lukaku ends up playing the ball back in towards Kevin De Bruyne, and from this position you do expect him to shoot. But what he does well is that he takes 3 Denmark players out of the game, and it creates space for him to play a first-time pass through the 6-yard box for an unmarked Thorgan Hazard breaking into that zone, and he's able to tap in the pass to level the game. Denmark's attempt to combat Roberto Martinez's shift to a 3-4-1-2 saw them shift to a 3-5-2 and bring on Norgar to track the movement of Kevin De Bruyne, but De Bruyne was still able to have an impact in the winner, and he varied his movement to ensure that the central defensive midfielder couldn't pick him up. Shortly after that, it's Eden Hazard creating a midfield overload by picking up the ball ahead of Delaney as the Denmark midfielder within close proximity of their markers. And Hazard ends up playing the ball across Delaney to split Højbjerg and Norgar for Kevin De Bruyne. De Bruyne receives the ball between the lines, and that's where you see Lukaku making a run across Vestergaard in behind, and De Bruyne tries to slip him in, but Kjær does a good job of intercepting. And in the build-up to Belgium's winner, Alderweireld receives late pressure and locates Lukaku making a run in beyond Vestergaard, but focus on Kevin De Bruyne's movement at the halfway line in left half space. When the ball is played over the top, Lukaku does pull out Vestergaard and Kjær into right half space, as Eden Hazard and Tielemans are Lukaku's sole options in the box. However, following some great individual play from Lukaku, you could see him making a run beyond Vestergaard in towards the box, and he slides the ball to Tielemans just ahead of Delaney, but look at the penalty area. You have both Hazard brothers occupying Waz and Christensen, Witsel calling for the ball ahead of Højbjerg, and Kevin De Bruyne unmarked in an inside left position. Tielemans ends up playing the ball in towards Thorgan Hazard, and he lays it off into the path of Eden Hazard, and when Eden Hazard receives the ball, you could see Højbjerg not sticking towards Witsel and not picking up the movement of Kevin De Bruyne as he looks to break into left half space. Hazard locates that, and he squares the ball in towards Kevin De Bruyne to place him in this position, and that allows him to fire a first-time low effort beyond Schmeichel, and that ended up being the game winner. So as you can see, a combination of Roberto Martinez's minor tactical adjustment and utilization of his bench helped Belgium overcome Denmark's aggressive pressing in their 3-4-2-1. Hi everybody, thanks for watching, and subscribe here for your latest tactical analysis and daily commentary on the InnerViews show. And if that wasn't enough, don't forget you could find more organic, unfiltered soccer/football analysis on the InnerViews podcast, the best soccer/football podcast in the world, available on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, and any Android apps on your Android devices.